it's very dirty for organizations to use AI as a blanket reason for massive layoffs that they want to do anyways. Like if your reason for laying people off is that your margins aren't healthy enough and there is all these inefficiencies in your business, fucking own that. Say that that's the reason. You don't need to say like because AI. They might talk shit anyways. They might not feel great about being fired anyways, but you'll know that you've done the best that you can, and you'll go to sleep knowing that you handled this like a leader and not like a coward. Hi everybody, I'm Adizel Niknariel. I am the founder of Good Guys Cult Marketing, and my goal here is basically to share as many observations, discoveries, knowledge as possible about growth, about learning, about leadership, about business, and about marketing. So in this video that you're going to watch right now, I'm basically talking about how companies can approach layoffs in a better way, in a way that actually retains the trust between them and their employees that are staying and also the exiting employees. The reason I got to thinking about it is basically because we are seeing, wave after wave of layoffs. Some companies are handling it really well. A lot of companies, not so much. And so I thought that this might be, a useful content to put out at this time. Please let me know in the comments what you think and enjoy. It seems like everywhere you look in tech, companies are having layoffs. Some small, some just like massive layoffs. And I want to say, firing is always difficult. It's always uncomfortable. I remember, back when I was running my startup and I had to fire one person. I could not sleep the entire night before I had to break it to him. It was just such a difficult conversation to have. And, when it comes to these way bigger organizations, I can imagine that discomfort just multiplies. But beyond the personal emotional discomfort that it creates for the people doing the firing, obviously for the people being fired, it's also really expensive for the organization. And I'm sorry to put on the pragmatic hat, but you can see after a period of layoffs or something that shook up the company like that, especially if it was not handled well, if it was mishandled by the leadership, if it was mishandled by HR, you can see the employee morale plummeting. You can see an exodus out of those places. People are jumping ship because they figure they're not going to wait for this whole thing to come crumbling to the ground. People's certainty is massively hit. People's sense of security is massively hit. There's a breach of trust that happens when firing is done in the wrong way in an organization, and especially when it's company-wide, when it's really big and not just this surgical one person who was clearly problematic, and employees can sort of other that person, even if it's not true. Employees can say, well, he was underperforming a little bit, or he was not really a culture fit, whatever, make excuses for why they are not next. But when it's so many people and it's mishandled, which I will get to what exactly that means, how to do the opposite, or how I recommend doing the opposite, then it's harder for employees to do that. The cognitive dissonance is too large. So even though it's a really hard, that time is really, really hard for everyone in the company, it's also an opportunity for leaders to demonstrate their character truly, right? Because if you think about it, it's really easy to stand by your values and be like a fantastic leader when everything is going well, when everything's going right, when there's tons of clients and there's tons of investors and everything is just going their way. That is, when that's when it's easy to sort of be at your best as a leader. But actually, our culture, our values, our leadership is really truly measured when times are tough, when things aren't easy, when you have to make the tough calls, really tough calls, when you have to have those difficult conversations, when you need to make calls that are going to impact the livelihood of dozens, hundreds, maybe even thousands of people. Okay. So I wanted to share with you today some guiding principles that will help you get through this time with your integrity and your character as a leader intact, and hopefully with your team or teams or your entire organization trusting you as much as possible still when this shitstorm is over. So these are, by the way, all based on my own experience as a leader and also witnessing other people's experience both as leaders and as people affected by these layoffs. I will say that these are all of these things that I'm going to mention, they're much easier to do when they truly are your character and they truly are the embodiment of the real values of the company, right? Not just like what it says on the website, but actually like the values and the culture. Much easier than you have to suddenly like manufacture all this stuff out of nowhere. So number one is to over communicate. Like if ever there was a time to over communicate, this is the time, right? The thing that you don't want is to create all these blanks because you're like nervous about saying the wrong thing, right? But the thing is, when you don't say something and you leave all these blanks, people are going to fill them. Your people are going to start filling them with stories. They're going to fill them with rumors. They're going to be fear-based. And you lose control of the narrative very, very quickly. When that happens, it's never to your favor. So as difficult as the truth is, it's better to communicate it as much as possible, as clearly as possible, and as soon as is feasible for you to do that, like once you've handled all the legal and logistics. Now, the second principle is empathy. It sounds kind of obvious, but I think that sometimes in this position, especially for people who are empathetic, we dissociate because it just feels so bad. It just feels so bad to deliver these bad news to people. You know you're going to be you're screwing this person over. There's no other way to say it, right? And you can tell yourself as much as possible, like this is what people do, right, to make themselves feel better about firing people. It's like, oh, it's rejection is protection, and I'm doing him a favor by firing him because this is not the right place, and everything happens for a reason, so they're going to find the amazing next perfect thing for them right after I boot them out of here. Kind of the same stuff that people tell themselves when they get fired in order to make themselves feel better. But guys, like even if that can be technically true, it's a lot of times it's used as a way to just dissociate from the fact that like this just feels really bad. Like this is not what either of you planned. This is kind of screwing them over right now, even if it'll turn out for the best, which hopefully it will, right? And so because it feels so bad, we go to these like dissociations, either like putting a positive spin on it or just becoming really like non-emotional about it. But that actually just makes it worse. Like it makes it feel like you don't care. And I think regardless of the logistics, which like there are things you can't change, right? You can't change a downturn in the market or the economy. Like you can't change your biggest client pulling out and now the company has to like cut to the bone. There are things you can't change. But what you can change is how you show up. And I think we sometimes underestimate how much impact knowing the person delivering the bad news or even like doing the bad thing to you, how much it hurts them too, how much they actually care about you. So this would not be a time where I would hide how how genuinely sorry and regretful I am to have to be making these changes. The third thing is, and this is assuming that you have, leaders underneath you, and or maybe like managers, stuff like that, and your organization is not flat, is to give your managers the tools that they need, like equip them to deal with this stuff. Because the last thing you want is for your individual contributor employees to be asking their managers, like looking to their managers for answers, and they're just like, I'm in the same boat as you, I don't know what's going on. Like, that creates such a negative picture of your entire organization, and really taints an experience that already is bad as even worse. So and it puts your managers, who might be staying with you, in a really awkward and uncomfortable position. So like, you don't want to be doing that to your internal leadership. You don't want to be doing that to your managers, right? You also, like, this is how you teach them. You If you give them the tools, if you equip them, if you empower them, you're not only helping them solve anticipating and helping them solve the issues that are coming right around the corner, but you're also demonstrating to them what good leadership looks like. We take care of our people. We remove their blocks. Even as we're doing something so difficult, we take care of our people, right? And the fourth thing, this is the almost last one, the fourth thing is to take ownership. Okay, like, take ownership and tell the truth. If you overhired and now you need to lay off a bunch of people, own it. Say that you made a mistake. Express your regret. If times are tough, don't try to sugarcoat it. The people who are staying, like I said, anything you don't say will get filled in with rumors, stories that are fear-driven, that are negative for sure, and a lot of times way, way worse than the actual truth. So, I also wouldn't use, I wouldn't use, I think it's very dirty for organizations to use AI as a blanket reason for massive layoffs that they want to do anyways. Like, if your reason for laying people off is that your margins aren't healthy enough, and there is, all these inefficiencies in your business, fucking own that. Say that that's the reason. You don't need to say, like, because AI, if it's not true. And the last thing is to be as generous as you can when you're parting ways with people. And that doesn't just mean like a generous compensation package, like money wise, although that really helps, obviously. Helps people feel a little bit more secure, helps them feel a little better, and like they weren't just like thrown to the dogs. But also in your approach and how much effort and energy and resources you're putting towards really trying to help them find their footing, right? So I watched a video recently about Layla Harmozy. She had to fire a bunch of people, and she said that one of the things that she did was she really checked with all the business contacts that she had to see who's hiring, literally like trying to place these people in roles. And one of the companies that I worked for, which was a technical training company with lots of professional courses, they actually like let exiting employees take professional courses so they can up level their skills and abilities. In addition to the obvious, like, generic writing letters of recommendation and things like that. I think those things, in addition to a compensation package that helps people practically, those things both show good faith, goodwill, good leadership. They demonstrate the value of taking care of your people. And that's important for the people exiting, right? And not talking shit about your company, and for, they might talk shit anyways. They might not feel great about being fired anyways, but you'll know that you've done the best that you can, and you'll go to sleep knowing that you handled this like a leader and not like a coward. And also, for the people staying, it is massively impactful to see that happening and how you treat the people as they exit. So those are the principles that I hope more people will pay attention to. And I hope, if you watch this and this was helpful, let me know if you agree, if you disagree, if you have anything that you want to add. I would love to hear it. Till then, peace out.